Right, see what you can make of these arguments, the fallacies and the mistakes you can get into. Try this. All Democrats believe in abortion. Abortion is killing children. Therefore, no Christian can be a Democrat. What's wrong with the argument? Well, a political party has a variety of policies, and they don't belong to a party because of a particular issue, or at least the particular issue that's possibly dominating why they belong to a particular party may not be the issue at hand that you're particularly concerned with. So, it's not that all Democrats would want to vote for abortion. That's the first mistake that's been made, okay? The next one I'll deal with is that abortion is the killing of babies. That to agree with abortion means that you agree with abortion in general, as a general principle to follow, rather than that you think it's validated in certain circumstances. After all, execution has been considered valid in certain circumstances in the past. For instance, where you had committed murder, punishment could be execution. Didn't mean to say that as a principle you felt you should be executing everyone in the population. A third point is that for whatever reason, you might actually think that abortion is not equivalent to killing a baby. Now, you might find this is hard to argue when, a fetus has a heart pump and seems to respond to all sorts of things that mum does in the womb. It seems to be a living being. But you could conceivably still, for some reason or other, even if you're wrong, you could still possibly think that, possibly believe that that's true. So even if it is murder, you could still not be agreeing to it because you think it is murder. You think it isn't. And you think it is right in certain circumstances. Or you may have a collection of other goals and issues, political points that make the Democrat Party better for you than, say, the Republican Party. Because you think, well, in this particular case, the head of the Republican Party might be acting as if he's a madman, as far as you can see. And therefore you won't risk it and you'll vote Democrat this time. Or you won't vote Republican because you think, it's too big a step down the road to fascism or rampant capitalism, and I'm not going to risk it. There could be reasons that you consider in total are more important than simply killing even a baby. I think that's possibly hard to argue, by which I actually mean not that it's hard to argue in itself, but hard to believe that it is the case, because life, human life especially, is usually held to be so important by people. And it's unacceptable that it couldn't be held as to be cardinally important to what is normally understood to be a Christian view. So I'm left with wondering, why do I think there's probably a great number of Democrats that are in fact Christian? I'm not supposing it's a majority of them, because I suppose I have fairly strict criteria on what, or rather limiting criteria on what constitutes Christian in my mind. It has to include something about the commandments, probably, that you can't go around murdering, and that most people probably feel that the baby in the womb before birth is still a live human being, not born yet, but very much alive. Now, at what point is it okay not to have the continuance of the future life that's possible? After all, we make the decision against it all the time when we decide, for instance, to use contraceptives, or we decide not to make love. We don't consider that that is murder, although some religious views, certainly some Catholic views, are that it's a suspect, not acceptable, that it's our, that it's right to go forth and multiply as much as you can. I don't know. Not quite that, not trivially that, is it? But, something like that. So it's not that we can't have a very definite view on what's right and wrong in our mind. It's just that we wouldn't necessarily know quite the boundaries, where they are, or we might not be so passionate about quite where the boundary is that we would draw the line. But we are clear that we would draw the line much further from our boundary wherever we draw it. But that reasoning will be not an objective fact so much as our experienced view and values that have been built up by our past, our training, and the teaching we've received, and so on. But now consider what would happen with consider the fault, if you like, of selfishness, being self-interested, particularly selfish, shall we say. All Republicans are capitalists. Capitalism is just rampant selfishness, and therefore no Christian can be Republican. Because, of course, in Christianity, the typical view is that it's right that we be loving and caring for our neighbour, not exploiting him, and treating him as ourselves. So no Christian could vote for the Republican Party. Well, let's first of all deal with degree. Do I have to be rampant self-interest to be voting for the Republican Party? No. I might be voting for the Republican Party for a variety of reasons. Other issues that are pressing on me. They might feel, for instance, that it's, I don't know, right to go to war at present, and this is a very important issue to me. And to, I don't know, safeguard our democracy and freedom of religion even, right? So I feel my freedom as a Christian is threatened if we don't go to war, and they're willing to go to war, so I'm voting for them, supposing that's the case. Alternatively, it's a question of degree as regards selfishness, that perhaps all people are selfish. It might even be in my religion, that all people are self-interested, fallen, sinful in some way, and that therefore simply being selfish is not going to, self-interested, is not going to disqualify me as a Christian. Christian is defined by some other level of not being selfish, not being totally selfish, or not doing horrendous things to other people in order for me to make a living and make money, and so forth. Does this mean then that all the members of both parties are Christian? Oh, not at all. Not at all. Only that the people who are distributed in that particular country, the people that are Christian, are not distributed equally in each party. Neither party is made up of Christians. That's not why you're voting for them. So it's not that I can't vote for Republicans or Democrats because the majority of their members, or even all of their members, are not Christian. In fact, in the extreme, neither party may have any Christians in, conceivably, because my criteria of Christianity is so strict. In the extreme, of course, that unless I vote for one of the parties, none of them will have a Christian voting for them. That would be extreme. But some people seem to get pretty close to that in a way. And they'll have nothing to do with politics, of course. In other words, they just say, neither party is Christian, I'm not voting. That may be rational if you really have the view that both parties would bring about things that are extremely against your religious view. So I might not vote for a party or even any party because they have policies that are not what I consider to be, say, Christian. And presumably I would need to also be of the opinion that voting for either made no difference as regards goodness of outcome. Otherwise, why not choose at least the better of the two evils? And therefore, the fact that a party's professing something that's not against my religious view, but the other party is professing something that is against my view, is good reason to therefore then choose against and actually for the party, against the party that has the wrong view, so to speak, and for the party that at least hasn't expressed the wrong view. But how I view the parties is not determined from how I vote in particular. It is not something that simplistically indicates that one party is Christian, the other one isn't, or at least that one definitely isn't, and none of its members can be. And it's the "and none of its members can be" that's particularly important. In other words, we try to avoid this generalization, this classification, all so-and-so are bad, unacceptable, out. You can say so-and-so are bad in as far as they support this aspect that is associated with so-and-so. But it's conceivable that they support it, or rather they support such and such a party, but not the particular issue, or they do it for quite different reasons to what you suppose, or the definition that you are using is not the usual one, in the case of, say, Christianity. Or, it's from your point of view, it's what Christianity should be, but they also think they're Christian even though they hold different views. But either way, on this particular issue of religious adherence, it's unlikely that a major party that's got a monopoly, or rather all its members are Christian, or all its members are not Christian. Else you will write off some people by writing off the group, because you've assumed everyone in that group has this characteristic, and it doesn't have. It's not that all Democrats are murderers. It's not that all Republicans are rampant, self-interested, evil, capitalist in the extreme. It is the case that we think what would otherwise be defined as murder is acceptable in some circumstances. You might do it for compassion reasons. You might do it for self-interested reasons. As in war, you're protecting your country, your families, your children, as you see it, as you understand it. You may find it therefore acceptable to kill the enemy in certain circumstances, which you no longer classify as being murder. It's a state-sanctioned killing, and so on and so forth. And you may feel that this has been rightly sanctioned or wrongly sanctioned, and so forth. The world gets in these tangles, not because of fallacious reasoning, though the reasoning is often fallacious. But the world gets in these tangles because it doesn't recognize people have different values. And in particular, that these values are not simplistic. They are intertwined. It's like principles. Some principles are more important than others and have priority in certain cases. And the way that pans out will depend again on what your values are. The whole mix. Your values are a consequence, far less of reasoning, although you may defend them with reason, but far more a consequence of what you have found to be normal and acceptable in your life and your society that you've experienced to date. Your adherence to scripture, your interpretation of it, your adherence to law, your understanding of its validity, your understanding of human rights, your understanding of the value of life, your understanding of even the definition of life. You know, do plants have life? Do animals have life? Do fetuses have life? Do babies have as important a life as a grown person? Does an old person have as much rights as a young person? Should they have? Do they have the same value? Should you be spending, therefore, equally on caring for the elderly person who's going to die, or the young person who's going to die, or the middle-aged active person who's going to die? How do you put a value on this? How do you allocate your resources accordingly? Should you? All of it turns on this huge matrix of values that you have come to have. And when it's all said and done, what you feel to be important overall in the mix. And that could vary from one circumstance to another, from one time to another. We do not feel and see things stably and constantly. We are not consistent through time. We change. We vary. The problem arises quite simply because you do not keep the first precept of, say, the Torah, which is to love your God. No, I must change that. You do not keep the first precept that Jesus takes to be the greatest commandment, the greatest principle, which is to love your God with all your heart, soul, mind and strength. You haven't focused very much on what your God truly is, but tried to match it to a scriptural God that you think should be, or you're told should be, and that's what you feel to be an objective God that you must measure up to or not. And therefore you're in confusion with what your values are and what scriptural values are, and the tension between them. You serve two gods. There's much problem, much confusion. So you turn to logic as a way out. It can be determined logically from some definite truth. And of course you look around for what's definite. Oh well, for instance, so-and-so. If you're a humanist, it's valuing human life, all life, not just the babies, not just the enemies, not just your own people, not just your family, but the family next door. Most people don't value them equally. And how you have that mix of how you value, again, you come back to, well, that depends on what you find to be important. Or you may sidestep the whole issue by saying, oh no, it's objectively there in Scripture. Thou shalt not kill. But even then, the definition of killing is not so clear when you come to it. At what point is life valuable or not? In the coming, in the making? Or, is it before conception you're free but not after? Why is that so? And in what circumstances? What happens if it means the death of the mother? Or what happens if it means an appallingly, with reasonable certainty, say, with reasonable expectation, an appalling life for the child concerned and for the parents in coping with the difficulty of, say, some severe impending handicap. Now you may be very courageous in hoping that it will be okay and trusting that it will be okay. But that's not reasonable and rational to someone who does not have your particular view of religion. So they see you as a great problem, and you see them as a great problem. What you both seem to lack is the earnest sincerity that each side may actually be exercising, given their delusion that Scripture is that valid, or their understanding of it is that valid, or their delusion that Scripture is not valid, and so on.